Hello and welcome to a chat with Rik Emmett. As I've just given away, my guest is, and there is a list, folks. I have made a list, and I spent most of the day reciting the list. So we're going to do it very quickly, a brief down version of the list. He is a Canadian Rock and Roll Hall of Famer in 1993, Musical Industry Hall of Famer in 2007, Juno's Hall of Fame, Canadian Walk Hall of Fame, 12 platinum albums from 75 to 88 with Triumph, 20 solo albums, 6 decades in music. Wait, kids, there's more. He is also was a teacher at Humber College and is the artistic director at Emera's Song Studio Songwriting Workshop, an author and a songwriter, a singer, a guitar player, and I guess that's the reason you didn't come to my birthday party and sing for me.
I guess that is, Sam. I was busy.
A little bit.
Apparently I was busy.
So the record would show. But anyway, my guest today is Rik Emmett. Rik, welcome to the show, and I am so honored to be able to finally talk to you. I've been trying for a few years, but you've been doing other things such as writing, recording, singing, and etc. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sam.
Now, you, as I mentioned, you've been in the business a long, long time, and you got started with Triumph as your big launch to your career. How did you get involved with Triumph in the first place?
They sort of came and talent scouted me when I was playing in a band called Act 3. And the first time I ever met them was at the Hollywood Tavern in Toronto in Etobicoke. And they sort of pitched me, and then I went out to, Gil had a house out in Credit Woodlands in Mississauga, and I went out there and had a kind of a jam session, sit down meeting with them. And yeah, I decided to go for it. So that was in the sort of summer of 1975, and the band actually started playing gigs in September of that year.
Now, you were with Triumph for a long time. You are known as one of the great guitar players of Canada, and that is an honor I know you don't take lightly. And as we can see on the video version of this interview, we can see your guitar collection, and as we spoke off air, that is from all your different years and have been used on stage through recording, through songwriting, all that sort of thing. And it just shows your love for the music. Now, obviously, somebody had to get you in love with music. Who was that? And how did they get you? How did they grab you? How did they get you into this? I want to do this thing called rock and roll.
Well, I mean, it didn't start out with rock and roll, but it did start with music. And it was definitely my mom. I mean, I was a little kid, and she would drag me off to church choir practices. She sang in the choir, and then I became a boy soprano singing in the choir. She was always singing at home and singing along to the radio. And when I would be washing dishes with her in the kitchen, she would teach me how to sing. Like, there was a tune. One of the first things I remember is a song called Bendemeer Stream. There's a bower of roses on Bendemeer Stream, and the nightingale sings by them all the day long. And she would teach me the song, and then we would sing 2-part harmony. And so that kind of stuff was what kind of really got me going. And I had a kind of an innate musical ability. I could hear things, and I mean, we didn't have any music instruments at home, but I'd gotten one of these toy yellow banana harmonica, like a plastic little harmonica that was like an octave and a bit. And I learned how to play songs like Red River Valley and Oh Susanna and those kinds of just folk songs on this harmonica. And then my grandfather got me a guitar. It showed up. It was like something that he'd salvaged out of his sister's closet. It had a hula dancer and a couple of palm trees stenciled on the front of it, one of those kind.
Yeah.
But it was the beginning, that was where it started. And of course, by the time the Beatles happened on Ed Sullivan, which would have been, I think, February of 1964, if I've got that right.
Something like that.
that was kind of like the big catalyst for so many guys my age. It was like, well, I'm going to do that. That's what makes the girls scream, So
Yeah,
yeah, so
and
that,
that's fantastic. Like so you weren't just in one genre. You have a love of all music, which is basically why I got into DJing, because I love all types of music. I'm not just a classic rock guy or a disco guy or a blues guy. Although my upbringing was blues with a gentleman, I don't know if you know him or not, Jackie Washington.
I know
Um,
the name. I don't know the guy.
yeah, him, Mo Scarrett, guys like that. They were the guys that I got to listen to for hours and hours and hours. And my mom's restaurant, we had a jukebox with the Beatles, the Supremes. So that was my upbringing in music. And and I'm not joking, I have zero talent when it comes to playing an instrument or singing. So I have my love through DJing. Now, my thing to you is you've done this for 6 decades. Have you lost any of the drive that you started off with when you first got into Triumph, say?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't have any ambitions career-wise at all now. My only ambition, I remain very ambitious about being creative, and I remain ambitious about uh, creating music, writing music, but also writing stories and poetry I've retired from the road, so I don't have any ambition to necessarily be going. Although I got an invitation, I am going to go to Sweden for New Year's to play a gig. That's a whole other story.
Nice.
Yeah. So and I do occasionally go out and do a little speaking engagement or a personal thing in a songwriting thing or something, and bring a guitar along and get up and sing a few tunes and do that sort of a thing. But generally speaking, I started, you asked about Triumph, and the ambition that I had that drove me into that and then drove me out of that, and then I had my own career making what I hoped to be mainstream records for about 5 or 6 years after that. And then I kind of went, okay, there's no point in chasing this anymore. A man in his 40s, the mainstream wasn't interested in me and I wasn't interested in it. So then I started doing indie. I had a digital studio in my basement. I started doing a classical record, a jazz record, a blues record, all the things that I kind of had always wanted to do in my life, but there'd always been this, music career thing in the way. So the memoir kind of talks about that, and the loss of my, I didn't care anymore about whether or not the mainstream liked me. So, and you get further and further away from it. Now, just to put your question in context, in the last few years of my life, I've written a book of poetry. I'm working on 10 sort of jazz R&B guitar pieces now, solo fingerstyle kinds of things. There's not a lot of market for that. There's not a lot of folks that are interested in it, but I'm interested in it. I'm ambitious about it, and I really want to chase it. So poetry and jazz guitar, these are not things that find a very big market, but my ambition for the large market, for the big demographic numbers, long gone.
Now, having said that, on your website, you do release tracks here and there, specifically for your fans to catch. And one of those was done during COVID, I'm guessing. And that is the bonfire sessions. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, essentially, I mean, I have a rig, and you're here in my studio now. I'm just going to move this a little tiny bit so that you can see here. I'm moving around. You see that big area up there? I have a recording rig up there, and I can set up microphones and I can record whatever I want. Now, that's a relatively new space. I didn't have that a couple of years back, but during COVID, this room, I had an ability to record. And a friend of mine named Steve Skingley, who plays bass in my band, he did for decades. He's a kind of a recording engineer now. And Steve would come over and he would help me record. Because I'm not really big on pushing buttons and clicking mouse, and I don't I don't get off on engineering. I get off on performing when the red light comes on. You know, I do like that challenge. So anyways, Steve comes over. And so we did the bonfire sessions, and I thought maybe this is maybe my last kick at the can. You know, I'd written a bunch of songs and guitar pieces and stuff and thought, yeah, and I can't remember how many there is in total. I think there's maybe 24, four chunks of 6 songs or something like that, 6 pieces. Anyways, you know, uh, I wasn't ambitious enough to be chasing a record deal somewhere. So I just thought, I'll just put them up for download off my site, you know. And of course, my fans do love it. The folks that have stayed with me and that are, you know, loyal and true blue, and you know, they see the best in me, which is nice. I think it's important for people to have folks that see the best in them, because that sort of helps you raise your own game. You know, you can see yourself being reflected in them, and you go, okay, well, you know, I should make a consolidated effort here. You know, I really should try and do something good. So, but I mean, you know, as you can see from the guitars, this is one part of my disease. Another part of my disease is that I write. You know, I constantly have things that are going into spiral notebooks, and I set up 3-ring binders and with loose leaf paper, and so that I can move sheets in and out of them. And you know, I'm just constantly scribbling away and coming up with things. And so eventually it's going to find its way. I mean, even if I just do voice memos on my phone, you know, it's going to find its way to a recording somehow. And then you do, for me, I feel like when you make music, it's not really complete until it is finding its way to an audience somehow. It really does have to kind of get floating up in the air, and people need to share it and hear it for it to become real. You know, it can be in your head, it can be on paper, great. You know, it can be in your computer, okay. But until you've actually been sharing it and finding out whether or not folks like it, and what is it about it that they like, you know, that's part of the thing of it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I love about my job. Not only doing this show, but I'm also the morning man at KPHR radio, and I'm also the station manager, and was asked what genre do I want to do, and I went with 70s and 80s music, because for me that was epic music. For me, it was the music of my youth, for one, so I can remain young forever. But mostly it was the time, the effort, the love that was put into the music. The Triumphs, the April Wines, the Chilliwacks, the Loverboys, you know, all those Canadian bands, and they have lasted so long. And then there's this great band, Triumph. You guys have lasted through this entire time as well. What do you think is the key to your longevity for Triumph and the fans that are still resonating today, that were back in the heyday of the band?
Yeah, well, you know, you've raised a couple of good points. I think one of them is, first of all, we weren't right in the heart of the boomer thing, because I think that sort of was, you know, the Beatles and the Stones, and there's, you know, Stones are still around. They got a new album out, and you know, so I think there were things that started for that boomer demographic, and they're lasting because it was just such a huge chunk of people that were getting into music all at the same time. And so, you know, you were talking about being a young person and having a jukebox that had Motown in it, and that. So I think that was the first wave. Then the second wave was more as the '60s became the '70s, and then, you know, Triumph and all those bands you mentioned, Chilliwack, and you know, Rush was maybe a little tiny bit ahead of it, but they were part of it too, you know. But that was a time when radio could really make music embed itself as soundtrack for people's lives. And now on to the thing about why Triumph. I think out of that, and I think it took us a while. First of all, I think the band was originally conceived by Gil and Mike as a hard rock, production oriented kind of thing, that it was going to make its mark by, you know, blowing up flash pots and shooting off flamethrowers, and you know, like it was it was a bigger, larger than life, big scale kind of a thing. And so we were able to make a kind of an impact in the marketplace in a hurry and with a lot of noise. But I also think that in my mind, I was joining this band, it was calling itself Triumph, and I went, well, I think I should try to come up with some kind of music that fits what the brand is really about, you know. And so it took me a while to figure it out, but it was the Just a Game album, third album. I wrote a song, Hold On to Your Dreams. And that was something where I was connecting to the audience in a really meaningful way and creating songs for Triumph that were, I think, the kind. It's like, you know, trees. They grow roots, you know, and they're evergreen trees because songs like Hold On, Lay It on the Line, Magic Power, Fight the Good Fight, you know, they've lasted. You know, I would go out on acoustic tours decades after the fact and be playing songs like Ordinary Man and Suitcase Blues, and there were still people that would go, man, you know, these are the best songs ever. You know, I felt like I'd really connected to something there and made the band meaningful. And it's a very gratifying thing to see that it's lasted, you know. I mean, I'm going to Sweden. The guy that does the contracting for that, he says, hey, we're going to do a thing. You know, we have a Canadian cover crew band and we play all these Canadian things. And we're thinking of doing your tunes. Like, would you come and play with the band if we added like a string quartet and horns? And you can do the arrangements. You can move the keys down if you want because you can't sing them anymore. And he goes, and I went, this is a really golden opportunity to be able to do something with those songs that I've never been able to do before. And I went, awesome, great, I'm in. You know, where do I sign? You know,
It sounds like that's going to be a great time. And now another aspect of Rik Emmett that I haven't discussed yet is your writing. And you were talking earlier about the poetry that you write and the songs that you write. You were also a columnist for a long time, writing for guitar magazines. That must have been a lot of fun, and you must have had an opportunity to meet some of the great guitarists of all time. Who's your favorite?
wow. Well, you know,
Speaking
I
of
think,
loaded questions,
yeah, as that the door that you know, my guitar player magazine, it was a huge thing, and it opened a lot of doors for me. And I have stories, you know, oh my God, have I got stories, and they're in my memoir, a lot of them, you know. But I would say maybe the most surreal one was George Benson during the Buffalo Niagara Guitar Festival. He came to my gig. He had a gig up the street. So he came to my club where I was playing after and got up on stage and jammed with the band. And that was like a crazy, wonderful dream come true. But I got to play with Ed Bickert, you know, who I consider to be the most, the deepest Canadian jazz guitar player that ever lived. I got to play with Alex Lifeson a couple of times. We did some recordings together. Leona Boyd, Ted Nugent. I mean, you name it. And I think the guitar magazine connection was kind of the thing that made those doors open, you know, so that I was able to make those connections to those people. Yeah, Steve Morse, like he must have won best guitar player in the guitar magazine polls. I think what happened was he won so often that they finally created a Hall of Fame and they put him in it so that he wouldn't be winning the voting anymore. But I got to play with Steve Morse on stage many times, in the studio, got to write with him. I got to play live on Much Music with him one day. It was crazy great, like just such a wonderful thing. So, you know, I'm a lucky guy. Plus, I'm going to say this too. I played, there was a guy named Dave Dunlop played in my band, and then he and I toured together as an acoustic duo for a long, long time. And Dave Dunlop, that was a joy every night to get to play with him. You know, it's not a big name. It's not necessarily something that, you know, your viewers and listeners might know, in the same way that they would know George Benson. Everybody knows George Benson, you know. But playing with Dave was as much of a joy over a long period of time as it was to have this, you know, brief moment of playing with George Benson, you know, for one song, one night, you know.
and that's awesome. And you mentioned the memoir, so let's talk about the book. The book is entitled Lay It on the Line. a backstage pass to rockstar adventure, conflict, and triumph. What does the book entail, and what can readers find in the book that they're gonna just love? Is it backstage stories from your career and your life?
There is some of that. I mean, a memoir, when you set out to write it, I mean, I realized that there were a lot of things I was hoping to accomplish. The most important, I think, was a kind of a legacy thing about my own life. I'm 70 years old now, and I wanted to say this is the kind of guy that I was. This is the kind of life that I've led. So, there's 16 chapters. The Triumph chapter is only one chapter, but of course, it's the one that I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if there hadn't been that. There wouldn't be the deal with ECW Press to put out a memoir if there hadn't been the Triumph thing. The marketing department goes, "Can we get the word Triumph on the cover somehow? Can you fit that into the subtitle?" I'm going, "Yeah, okay." So from a marketing point of view, clearly that's the calling card. There's no question. And the day that I die, somebody's putting my eulogy somewhere, they'll say, "Oh, Rik Emmett, the guy from Triumph." It'll be there. There's no way you can get around it. But I felt like I was writing the book because I wanted to say, look, I taught school. I made more albums after I left Triumph than when I was in it. I was a teenage kid like this. I was a 50-year-old man like this. I'm now a 70-year-old man like this. And I wanted to make sure that I was giving people some insight into what's a creative life like. What is it like if you are pursuing the idea of always reinventing yourself and rediscovering yourself and trying to make a better you every day that you pick up your guitar or pick up your pencil,
Now that the book is available on ECW publishing. And are you going to be doing any book signings at all?
Well, I've got a couple. I know I'm booked to do one in Brampton in next April. But it's not like I'm going out on a tour where I'm gonna hit every major market. Geddy Lee's memoir came out, and he's going on I thought, he doesn't, it's not like he needs the money or anything. Why is he doing it? But I guess he kind of misses the idea of being out and touring around and being in these markets. He's doing interviews in every place. If something arises, I might say yes, but at this point where there's only conversations about 2 or 3, and as I say, there's really only one on the books. But I am going to Sweden. It's got nothing to do with my book, but it's on the calendar.
Hey, you just keep selling that. That's awesome. Now, seeing as you've said you haven't got anything on the books, and if there was a reason, you might want to go and do some book signings. In February, I just happened to be doing a celebrity hockey game for U.S. and Canadian war veterans charities. And the night before, I will be doing an event with the charity being Kerry Goulet's Stop Concussions. I don't know, if maybe a famous guitar player would like to come and sign some of his books, he would be more than welcome. So if you know anybody, you are more than, it will be in Hamilton, Ontario.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not gonna, if you're coming, I'm not dragging you far.
No, that's right.
Yeah. But it is a weekend type event, and as I said, the charity on the Friday night, we're going to feature stand-up comedian Larry Smith, who's been in the business for over 30 years, and a gentleman called COVID Elvis. He will be performing for people to dance the night away. And before that, we're going to have raffles and auctions and that, and all the proceeds, 100%. The hall has been donated. The entertainment has been donated. 100% of the proceeds are going to Stop Concussions. And if you are so inclined, I would love to extend an invitation for you to come on out. It's February the 17th in Hamilton, Ontario.
Okay, well, there's nothing like being put on the spot, Sam.
No, that's not the idea. I just want you to consider it. We'll talk at some other point about it.
All right.
Because we can't plan really that far ahead, because you never know what's going to happen book-wise, or, maybe you get an opportunity to go to Australia. You might want to do that. You never know what's going to happen. But I just want to put it out there that the invitation is there.
All right.
And hopefully we can get you involved in some small way, even if it's just an auction item. But like I said, it's a worthy charity for me because I have post-concussion syndrome. And Carrie has been a person who dragged me off the ledge, so to speak.
Nice.
And he has convinced me that life is good, life is fun, life is a great thing, along with a good friend of ours, Kevin Shea. He has done the same for me. So anything I can do
Nice.
for him and his charity, I just want to do it. And with that in mind, I want to thank you for taking some time for me. Is there anything you want to say to your fans before I let you go?
No, it's been delightful to chat with you, and you know, I think that it's great that you're doing this thing, and you know, if there's some way I can make it happen, for sure I will contribute in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, no, you know, Sam, I hope you can appreciate. I have to sit here now in front of this phone 2 or 3 times every day for the last 2 weeks doing
Yep.
these things, right? So, you know, really, the message is already happened. Like, you know, I'm good. I don't have any special message other than, hey, nice to talk to you.
Now I'm going to play a song here. Would you like a Triumph tune, or would you like me to play something off of your downloads?
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, something new that most folks have not heard. That would be great. Yeah.
Okay, well, you do the intro and then I will put the song on for you, please. The floor is
Wow.
yours.
You mean I can
Your
pick any
choice.
song?
Any
Yeah.
song you want, as long as you have something to do with it.
Okay. So this is from the Bonfire Sessions, which, you know, the full title of that was songs from the Farewell Bonfire. So, you know, and that just became, well, that's a kind of a long thing. All right, we'll just make it be Bonfire Sessions. But there's a song on there called oh, I'm trying to think of the title now. It's going out of my head. It wasn't The Rest of My Life. That was on the Res 9 album. Story of My Life. There's a song on there called The Story of My Life. So, it's a kind of a Jimmy Webb-ish kind of song. It's really only just me and a guitar, but you know, I think people will get the idea, maybe. So that's the one I want you to play. It's called The Story of My Life from the Bonfire Sessions.
All right, and that has been a chat with Rik Emmett. Rik, I want to thank you. And again, I just wanted to state on the record that I was not trying to put you on the spot. It was just an invitation to help you sell books. And I hope you had a good time. I had a wonderful time. It's an honor to have met you virtually. And hopefully at some point I will get a chance to see. Are you going to Hall of Fame weekend?
I doubt that. No.
All right. Well, we'll find some hockey way to catch up with each other.
Yeah, no, well, you know, this thing I've been talking about going to Sweden, it's part of the World Junior Championships, right? That the Canadian contingent goes there. And so the New Year's party where they have a band play, it's for all of the families and the girlfriends. And I don't know if the players come or not. They probably don't, because the coach goes, hey, you got a curfew, you know. But yeah, that's why it's happening there. It's in Gothenburg, Sweden, and it's hockey. So there always seems to be hockey, and you know, when you're Canadian, it's always finding its way into your life in one way or another, right?
Yeah, well, I want to thank you one more time. My guest has been Rik Emmett, formerly of Triumph, and now a great singer-songwriter and author. So be sure and check out his website, rikemmett.com, and be sure and click on the Bonfire Sessions and check it all out. And we're going to get that song on right now. Thank you for listening. Take care. Be good. Love you all. Bye-bye.